Okay, so today we're going to talk about if your ex wants you to be the one to reach out. If you stay around until the end of this video, not only am I going to answer the ultimate question if your ex wants you to reach out, but we're also going to take a look at specific text messages that you could potentially send to yield not only high responses, but also kind of camouflage, especially after a no contact rule, assuming that's what you're doing. But first things first, if you haven't already, make sure you stop everything you're doing and take my ex recovery chances quiz. It's perfect for anyone new who's basically trying to determine whether or not they should be trying to get an ex back or simply moving on from an ex. Now, all you have to do if you want to take this free, simple 2-minute quiz is simply look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on the blue link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where you can answer questions, and within 2 minutes, it will spit out a score that will kind of tell you where you're standing so you know you're not going to be wasting your time. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about reaching out first and if your ex wants you to do it. So pretty much everyone who talks about getting exes back or moving on from exes is going to be talking about the no contact rule. I have certainly talked about it multiple times throughout this YouTube channel, throughout my website, and even on my podcast. It's one of the most common strategies, not just within my space, but other people's spaces. But there's always kind of this dynamic when you tell people to implement a no contact rule after the breakup. Number one, they start thinking, well, if I ignore my ex, will they forget me? Well, no, they're not gonna forget you. And number two, people really worry about, well, isn't it gonna make my ex mad about the fact that he could be reaching out to me or she could be reaching out to me and I'm ignoring them? And that's really what we're going to be looking at here. Let's assume that you're doing a no contact rule on your ex. Do they want you to reach out to them after the breakup? And in order to properly explain that, we need to kind of talk about this concept of winning the breakup. So honestly, I've long harbored suspicions throughout my career doing this that men and women, after they go through a breakup, kind of have this tendency to want to win the breakup. And you're almost looked at as winning the breakup if you can make your ex bend to your will, if they can reach out first. This was always just a suspicion of mine, a theory that I had no way of proving until I actually asked my own clients, hey, how many of you who have used a no contact rule on your exes had an ex reach out to you first? The results were kind of interesting. So in all, I asked 98 different people, how many of you had an ex who reached out first when you implemented a no contact rule on them? 63% of those people said their exes did not reach out at all. And this is interesting because that would make you assume, well, then that doesn't mean my ex wants to hear from me. That doesn't mean they want me to reach out to them. Yet, the paradox occurs when you actually talk to our success stories and have literally used a no contact rule on their ex to the point where their ex doesn't reach out to them and they're forced to reach out to their ex first. And when you talk to those people and ask them, hey, did you ask your ex what they were thinking when this happened? Pretty much every single one of them who asked their exes this said that the exes basically said, I was just waiting for you to reach out to me first. So it was kind of a Mexican standoff, so to speak. Now, what does this tell us? Well, yes, your ex does want you to reach out to them, especially during a no contact rule. In fact, many exes are so stubborn they won't reach out to you first. But this is where it gets interesting. How you reach out to your ex is almost just as important as when you reach out to your ex. So I think we kind of have the when part down. If you don't know when you should be reaching out to your ex, well, watch my YouTube channel. Basically, you're gonna be doing a no contact rule, and only after that no contact rule is completed, you send a text message to your ex. But you need to send it in a very specific way. And when I started my website, Ex-Boyfriend Recovery, I didn't have a lot of data on really what works. So we tried a lot of different ideas out. Some ideas worked, some ideas didn't work, but usually the ideas that did work had major flaws with them. Only through stress testing the process of seeing what's working from real people who have really gotten their exes back, who have really gotten responses, where we're able to kind of come up with 3 things that you need to include in your reach out text message. But before I talk about those 3 things, maybe we should talk about the internal strife you have against reaching out, especially if you're a female. So this is a battle I literally fight with females every single day. I tell them, hey, don't worry about who reaches out to who first. What matters is the quality of your conversation and who ends the conversation first. Yet they always feel like they're giving up ground if they reach out to their exes first. It's almost like they inherently feel like they're going to be losing the breakup. But the truth is, you shouldn't be looking at this breakup or even trying to look at this reconnection as a winning or a losing type of a way. You're just simply trying to restart a conversation with your ex. Who cares if you let them have this one win? But here's the cool part. If you listen to my advice about how you should be reaching out to your ex with a very specific set of 3 rules, you're not going to lose ground. In fact, you're going to confuse them because you're going to take their preconceived notions about what you are doing during that no contact rule and turn it on its head. So what are the 3 rules that you should be following? Well, I'm going to break it down for you really quick. The 3 rules are: number 1, implement a damsel in distress text message. Number 2, use a camouflage sentence. And number 3, use the Benjamin Franklin effect. Now, what do those 3 things mean? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. Let's tackle the damsel in distress text message first. So it's become clear through interviewing success stories and looking at what actually works when it comes to text messages that the most effective text message that we've ever come up with is the damsel in distress text message, because it really taps into your ex's hero complex. They want to be the hero and save the day. But usually the damsel in distress message is not as simple as just saying, help me. There needs to be reasons and hooks into why your ex would want to help you. So I'll give you an example of a really great damsel in distress text message, or a really great damsel in distress idea. The most recent success story interview that I conducted a week ago was with a woman named Sarah. Now, Sarah came up with a brilliant idea to get help with her taxes. She knew that doing the taxes was going to be extremely difficult. She also knew, I don't know how to do the taxes, but my ex does. So what she did was send him a text message and basically say, hey, do you mind if you could help me on doing these taxes? He responds, of course, except it would be easier if we jumped on the phone. And so there you go. Not only did she get a really positive response of him agreeing, but he even went as far as breaking that barrier where it's like, hey, let's get on the phone and talk this over. That is the power of a damsel in distress text message. Now, it doesn't always work that way. And sometimes if you kind of play your cards a little too aggressively, your ex will just simply say no to whatever you're asking help for. But generally speaking, it is the most effective type of text message to use out of no contact. But there is one small fly in the ointment. You just ignored your ex for 30 days, usually as a minimum. Isn't it just weird to reach out to them after ignoring them for this amount of time? That's where the camouflage comes into play. So what is camouflage? So I would define camouflage as essentially inserting an idea that makes your counterpart doubt their preconceived notions about you. The next obvious question is, well, okay, how do you do that? How do you insert an idea that kind of breaks the tension? The number one question someone is going to have when they see a text message from you after they have tried to reach out to you multiple times is obviously going to be, why didn't you respond before? Or where have you been? The best way to respond to this is by giving your ex a legitimate reason for why you're reaching out to them now. And usually that reason is because of an emergency, which really fits into the damsel in distress aspect, because damsel in distress aspects happen as emergencies. We will use one of my favorite aspects or favorite text messages that I've seen work time and time again. That's where you ask for help at work from your ex. I want you to see, as I spell out or say this text message, if you can notice the camouflage effect. Hey, since everyone at my work sucks and I don't feel like ruffling any feathers, can you tell me what you think about insert problem it would really save me a lot of work. Now, obviously, the insert problem is going to be unique to you. That's where you have to kind of put your thinking cap on and figure out what would be something that you would need his or her help with. But the camouflage comes in with, okay, well, why are you reaching out to me now? Well, that's actually answered in this little statement here. Hey, since everyone at my work sucks and I don't feel like ruffling any feathers. This one sentence is meant to disarm your ex. It's meant to camouflage the reason for why you're reaching out. It's an urgent reason. You know there's something at work that needs to get done and everyone at work doesn't like you and you don't feel like ruffling feathers. So you feel they're the only person you can turn to. There's a million different ways to include camouflage into your text messages, but it's essential that you do it because it will really disarm your ex's preconceived notions about you. They're thinking at first, why are they reaching out to me now? And then when they reread the text message, they're like, oh wait, they're having an emergency. This is essential to do. But there's also kind of a really interesting embedded aspect for why this is the premier first contact text message that you should be sending when you do reach out to your ex. And that has to do with rule number 3, the Benjamin Franklin effect. So what is the Benjamin Franklin effect? Well, I'm glad you asked. Have you ever done a favor for someone only to have them not do a favor for you in return? In fact, what you find is maybe you do a favor for them and then they ask you for another favor and you feel like, okay, I'll do that favor. And then they ask you for another one and on the cycle goes. That is the Benjamin Franklin effect. It's been founded that people who do favors first are more likely to do favors for that person again and again and again and again. And this is embedded within the damsel in distress text message. It's essentially you asking your ex for a favor. And if they do the favor for you, they're more likely to do another one and another one and another one. And that's when you kind of have them hooked in having a conversation with you. It's easy to open up the floodgates when that happens. And that's why this is the premier first contact text message that you should be sending to your ex when you reach out to them first. Okay, so that's gonna do it for today's video. If you have any questions, because this was kind of an advanced concept, especially me dissecting this text message and the rules, if you have any questions about it, feel free to comment below. Also, if you haven't taken that quiz that I talked about at the beginning of the video, make sure you stop everything you're doing and actually take that quiz. Oh, also, if you haven't already, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and do all the stuff that makes the YouTube algorithm like the videos so that we can stay in business. See you next time.